Have you ever wondered what happens when the engine of the US economy suddenly starts sputtering? Because that's exactly what happened in August 2025. The US economy added only 22,000 jobs, so the unemployment rate rose to about 4.3%, one of the highest level in 4 years. For an economy who has been running strong since the pandemic recovery, this slowdown surely is dramatic. For most of 2025, US labor market has been one of the strongest components of the economy. Employers were hiring, wages were rising, and confidence was fairly high. But over the summer, something really changed. June's numbers were revised down to show a loss of 13,000 jobs, marking the first time since December 2020 that the economy shrunk in terms of employment. July also looked weak, and now August has brought us another disappointment with only 22,000 jobs compared to 75,000 jobs that the economists had earlier predicted. The result of the slowdown is pretty clear. Unemployment is ticking upward. At 4.3%, the jobless rate has reached its highest level since 2021. While that number may not sound very alarming as compared to the previous recessions, but the trend matters. Just a year ago, the unemployment was at 3.5%, one of the lowest levels in modern history. That steady climb shows that the job market is definitely losing momentum. Not all industries are being affected equally by this slowdown, and the picture is becoming clearer as numbers roll in. The manufacturing sector has been one of the hardest hit. In August, it lost around 12,000 jobs, adding to a year-long decline of over 78,000 positions. Many factories are struggling with higher costs from tariffs and weaker demand for goods. Companies that once thrived on exports are finding it harder to compete globally, while domestic demand for big-ticket items like cars and appliances has slowed. Federal government employment has also dropped significantly. Nearly 97,000 jobs have been cut since January, including about 15,000 in August alone. These reductions are tied partly to budget cuts and a hiring freeze in some departments, leaving agencies with fewer workers to carry out their programs. Construction, another key employer, has also started cooling down. Rising borrowing costs over the past 2 years made it more expensive to finance housing and commercial projects. While interest rates are expected to fall soon, the damage has already been done, with companies delaying or canceling projects, which translates into fewer construction jobs. The wholesale and retail trade sectors are also under stress. When consumers tighten their spending, businesses order fewer goods, and warehouses, distributors, and retailers feel the squeeze. August numbers reflect that slowdown, with job growth in these areas flattening out or moving negative. This slowdown, however, is not being felt evenly across America. The unemployment rate for Black workers rose to about 7.5%, while those for white workers, it remained much lower at 3.7%. This gap definitely highlights how economic pain falls more heavily on certain groups during downturns. Young workers and those in low-wage groups are also feeling more vulnerable, as they're often the first ones to be laid off when companies cut costs. Several reasons are driving this sudden weakness in hiring. One big reason is uncertainty in trade policy. New tariffs and trade disputes have raised costs for companies, especially manufacturers, making them hesitant to expand. Businesses also worry about shifting rules on immigration, which has limited the pool of available workers in some industries. At the same time, corporate leaders were facing broader economic questions. Consumer spending, which powers more than 70% of US economy, is now starting to cool. Families are pulling back on big purchases, and companies don't want to overhire if demand continues to fall. The weakness in the labor market comes at a sensitive time for the Federal Reserve. For the past 2 years, the FED's top concern has been inflation. It raised interest rates aggressively to cool down prices, and that strategy worked to some extent. But now the challenge has shifted. With job creation slowing so dramatically, the FED faces pressure to cut interest rates to encourage borrowing and hiring again. Economists widely expect the FED to announce at least one rate cut soon, possibly as early as September. Such a move would lower borrowing costs for businesses and consumers, making it easier for companies to invest and expand. However, cutting too much too quickly could risk fueling inflation again, creating a difficult balancing act. Most importantly, jobs report is more than just numbers. It directly affects millions of families. When fewer jobs are created, it becomes really hard for fresh graduates to land their first job, for middle-aged workers to switch careers, or for parents to re-enter the workforce after time off. Rising unemployment also weighs on consumer confidence, meaning that they might spend less on dining, shopping, or travel. And when spending slows, businesses make less money, leading to even more cutbacks and layoffs. So yes, this is a cycle that can spiral if not carefully managed. So the coming few months will be critical. If the FED cuts rates and consumer spending holds steady, hiring may kick back later this year. So fingers crossed, let's hope for the best. This is all from my side for today. I hope you found this video helpful, and if you do, make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for daily financial insights. Stay tuned until next time.